picture the scene. 1996, I'd just started for a brand new coach company. It was my very first job that I'd ever done for them. It was on a Saturday and it was doing a wedding reception, but this was no ordinary wedding reception. This coach company I worked for was the absolute cream of coach companies. They had some fantastic vehicles. They had vehicles that cost him £200,000 in 1996. They had air conditioning, coffee machine, microwave, fridge, everything you could possibly imagine. DVD player screens that dropped down in front of each person, leather interior. It had everything, and I was made up to work for this firm because I've been trying to get on there for ages, and they're very particular who they employ, so I'm quite surprised they employed me. But I did look smart. I was wearing a three-piece suit. I was even wearing a watch chain. You should have seen me. I looked a picture, but that was my younger days. We are talking a long time ago. Anyway, the story goes, this wedding's no ordinary wedding. It's in a Cambridgeshire village, and it's a beautiful church, and it was a summer's day. You couldn't ask for a better day, and this wedding was the dog's bollocks. I mean, there'd been a lot spent on this wedding. The bride turned up in a horse and carriage, two beautiful white horses. She turned up in a horse and carriage, and I think the groom, he actually turned up in a Ferrari, flash bastard. But there was a lot of money spent on this wedding, and I had to take the guests in the coach to the wedding service, and then further on to the reception in the evening, where they all got slightly blotto. So I get them to the church, and they all filters off, and they all go in the church, and I'm sat outside, and I'm looking around this coach, and I'm thinking, this is superb, this. And I'm looking at the dashboard, and the dashboard looks like something from Starship Enterprise. There's more buttons than you've ever seen in your life. But the only problem was the coach was German. It was made by a company called Cetra, and all the switches are all done with strange symbols or German words, and I don't speak German or understand German, only rude ones, and there were none of them on the dashboard. So I was just pushing each button as I went along to see what it actually done, to see what I could find out what each button done, how you work the air conditioning because it was a hot day, how you got the coffee machine on so I could make a free cup of coffee. You've got to get your priorities right when you're a coach driver, you know. How to get the DVD on so I could watch a film. So I'm playing about with all these buttons, and there's one particular button on the dashboard that has no markings whatsoever, and it's just like a push knob, a black push knob on the dashboard, and it looked a little bit out of place, to be honest. And I thought, I don't know whether I push that, because I've got no idea what that's going to do, whether it's to do with the engine, the air conditioning, the heating. No idea what that would do whatsoever. So you know what it's like, though. The more you look at something, the more you want to push it, don't you? You just do. And meanwhile, the old wedding was ticking along, and they'd had the service, and they'd all come out into the churchyard and lining up for the photographs, and I had the horse and carriage in front of the coach and everything. And the guy there were all dressed in top hat and tails, you know, the horseman and all that business, and he was stood by the horse and carriage. So there's me fiddling about with these buttons, and I thought, sod this, I'm going to push this button and just see what happens. And I pushed this button. Well, fuck me, I've never been so scared in all my life. It were the loudest air horns you've ever heard in your life. They'd retrofitted air horns underneath the coach, twin air horns. These two horses, well, I've never seen horses go vertical before, but they just went vertical. They just ran. The guy with the top hat and tails who were looking after it, he weren't even in it, so it scarpered off down the street. All the guests that were taking their pictures, having their pictures taken in the churchyard, all jumped out the skin, so it made for some interesting wedding pictures. They all started staring at me as if to say, "You bastard, you... what are you doing? You're ruining our wedding." And I really didn't mean to. It was my first job on the company. I thought, oh, this is going to be my first and last job on the company as well. So eventually they all got back on the coach, and they all said, what was all that about? And I did explain the situation, what had happened and what I'd done, and they did see a little bit of the funny side of it. And then by the time they'd had the reception in the evening and drunk about 50 bottles of champagne, then it was very funny then. I mean, they were all pissing themselves laughing that I'd pushed this button. And I did explain to the boss what happened on Monday morning, and he found it quite amusing. Luckily the boss knew who it was who was getting married, so that calmed the situation down a bit, and I didn't get the sack, which I was quite thankful about, and I enjoyed driving for that company for quite a long time. So that was another bit of a strange, funny story for On the Buses 7, and it's Bob Psychopathic signing out, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Ta-da!